Now, environmentalist Ravi Chopra resigned as chairman of the Supreme Court appointed high-powered committee overseeing the Modi government's Char Dham highway project. This project, which was announced in 2016, is for widening the 889 kilometers of hill roads to provide all-weather connectivity in the Char Dham circuit. That's Badrinath, Kedarnath, Gangotri and Yamunotri. However, this was challenged in the Supreme Court by an NGO over damage to the ecology with tree cutting and dumping of debris taking place. Ravi Chopra headed the high-powered committee that was then tasked with looking into the issue. And then the Supreme Court accepted the recommendations to allow road widening of 5.5 meters. But then this was later challenged by the Ministry of Defence that claimed they needed wider roads for army movement, which was then accepted by the Supreme Court. We're now joined by Mr. Ravi Chopra. So thank you so much for speaking to us here at NDTV. First and foremost, tell us, why did you resign from this panel?
Thank you for inviting me to your program, Ms. Rawat. As I've said in my letter to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court has now preferred to have a wider road, which will cause greater environmental damage. The court has also appointed a committee to look at the 3 defense roads leading up to the Indo-China border. And it has entrusted a 150 kilometer length approximately to the high-powered committee. Even on these 2 roads, the court has given permission to the ministry that it may approach the court for widening of those roads also. Okay, so it doesn't, my goal in taking on this responsibility in 2019 was that in the hope that we could help protect the environment as well as ensure the needs of the tourists and the defense sector. But today I have lost the confidence that the HPC can do that, and therefore I have chosen to resign.
Right, sir, and I believe you traveled quite extensively as the head of this panel. If you could tell us, what did you see there up in the upper reaches of the Himalayas? Because these are very fragile areas already. We see that, there's flooding often, and then there's it's earthquake prone as well.
Yes. Now, we undertook several tours. We went across the entire 889 kilometers of the roads, and we observed unanimously that the road width was the key factor which determines the extent of hill cutting and the subsequent environmental damage. Okay, we also noted, again unanimously, that the MORTH engineers had adopted a high-risk approach to the road widening. Now, let me be a little more specific. We noticed that comprehensive and adequate geological investigations, especially in the weak zones, had not been done. To give you an example, on a 127-kilometer stretch of the highway from Tanakpur to Pithoragarh, we investigated 174 locations. 102 were identified as vulnerable to landslides and slope failures, out of which 44 had already failed before December 2019. And out of the 102, 34 no treatment measures had been recommended. Okay. Now, the second thing is the issue of muck dumping, as you have raised it. And, it is possible to plan the hill cutting, estimate the volume of debris that will be generated, and set aside space for its disposal. But in our tours, what we noticed, and from the data that was provided by MORTH, what we noticed was that there was a gross mismatch between the estimates and the actual amount of debris that was generated. Now, this implies that either the technical analysis was flawed, or adequate investigations had not been done in the field. Okay, so very often when there are slope failures, landslides, then the volume of debris that comes down is huge. And
Right.
very often it includes large boulders that requires heavy equipment to move. And, these resulted in deaths.
And the reports of debris being just dumped into the river, we know all the tributaries of the Ganga, etc., all are there in the Himalayas, and the debris is just being dumped there. Do you feel, the impact of, and I just want to make this point that the panel did say that go ahead and widen the roads, but to a particular point, isn't it? It was just that,
Yes.
and not beyond that, and that was the point. It wasn't against widening of roads or improving the roads here. It was just to do it in a very environmentally conscious manner. And one worries, sir, about the impact this could have in the years to come.
Yes. Now you have to keep in mind that even though some of the committee members had independently come to the conclusion that a narrower, that less widening would be more useful from the environment and the defense point of view, we later found out that the ministry itself had issued a notification in 2018 saying that experience between 2012 and 2018 had shown that in the Himalayan region, the roads could not be of the DL plus PS, that is the 12 meter to 14 meter width. They could not be because there was a lot of environmental damage and landslides. So it is not just the few members of the committee who are saying this, but the engineers of the ministry themselves had come to the same conclusion and had recommended a narrower road width in the Himalayan region.
For speaking to us, and just to tell the viewers that that animation that we were taking was something that was provided by the ministry, in which they're trying to portray what it's going to be like. And of course, as Mr. Ravi Chopra was telling us, on the ground the situation is very different. There's dumping of the debris into rivers. Also, tree cutting is taking place quite extensively. Yes, sir.
I would like to make one comment on that, and which is that the committee noted that praiseworthy works were rare. There was little attempt to find innovative solutions to save the environment, particularly in areas of pristine Devdar forests. Okay? So that was very disappointing.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for speaking to us. And Mr. Chopra has resigned as the head of that Supreme Court appointed panel.